Greetings, Quester, and welcome to the Meddlesome Meeples. Grab an ale, sheathe your axe, and join us fireside. Here's your host, Matt Williams, with Richard and Heather.
Welcome to episode 9 of the Meddlesome Meeples. I'm Matt.
I'm Richard.
I'm Heather.
So we've got a few special segments to talk to you about this week. Richard.
Well, we are going to talk about the Board Game Expo that we went to.
Yeah, the UK Games Expo 2017.
Yeah, and that also answers the question of what I've been doing this week.
Yeah. And Heather's going to be...
say what you've been doing this week. You went as well.
Yeah, I was also at the UK Games Expo. You didn't get to go this year, did you?
No, but I went to see Wonder Woman yesterday.
Yes.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Without you.
And tell us what you think. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot better than I thought it was. I don't think the advert really does it justice.
Why did you enjoy it then? What was good about it?
A lot. I like the outfit. It's just a girly thing to say.
Well, you see, if I'd said that, or if Richard had said that, we'd be getting hate mail right now.
I am here. Nah, she's... Yeah, it is really nice. It's a lot different than other female superheroes.
I've actually heard that.
Yeah.
They've said she's not so much like a superhero, more like a proper character kind of thing. So.
Yeah, definitely. Very powerful. But
I'm very interested to see.
Don't want to give it away.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see that myself. I haven't been able to get to see that yet.
Take me to see it again in 3D.
But I, like Richard, went to the UK Games Expo, so we're going to be doing a special quest report on that and talking about some of the things we saw there and the games that we've played. We've got a special Tiny Meeples Big Talk. And just, if you haven't picked up by now, special, we use that as a code word for a long one.
Yeah, basically we had a lot to discuss. And you might be able to tell by the uniform I'm wearing what the subject was.
Yes?
I wasn't sure about wearing this at first, but now that I put it on, I don't want to take it off. So.
This is what happens when you borrow your mate's Star Trek uniforms, don't you?
That's what happened with me. I wore this last night and I thought I'm just going to wear it all day to rub it in.
Yeah. Just showing it off.
Oh.
So yeah, we'll be doing a special Tiny Meeples Big Talk on our Star Trek Dream Team Bridge Crew. Following on from our Star Wars segment last week, because we have to keep it balanced.
Yeah.
And also I'll be talking about a recent read of mine, Aztec Century, by Christopher Evans, which is an alternate history sci-fi novel that shows us what the world might have been like had Hernando Cortez gone over to the Aztec side.
You've been watching Stargate while reading that. Your head must just be... How do you concentrate on so many things at once?
I have been watching a lot of Stargate SG-1
Yeah.
this week. I think I've watched like 12 episodes since Monday.
So you can't rely on what you said about this book. It could have just been something SG-1 did.
I did manage to keep them separate, you know. I don't think I mentioned Daniel Jackson at all during Tome Talk. And you know how much I talk about Daniel Jackson and Sam Carter.
Yeah.
No, so if I'd said that would be weird.
Yeah, that's why I had to add the Sam Carter.
When Matt says it, it's slightly more weird.
Yeah,
That's what we normally go for.
So that's what we've got to look forward to in this episode. Let's get on with the show. So on this episode of the Quest Report, Richard and myself wanted to talk about something that we'd been to recently, which was the UK Games Expo 2017.
Yeah, so it's more like a normal quest we went on. We actually went somewhere this time.
We went somewhere, we did some things, we played some things, we saw some things.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, actually. I was looking forward to the playing of games. Because obviously we get to play games quite a lot here, but we don't get that much time to just really spend a day or something and without kind of interruptions and being able to just play one of the really long games. And that's what I was looking forward to. And I thought it'd be interesting to see the expo and see what it was like. But actually I really enjoyed the expo as well. It reminded me a lot of Comic-Con, but a little bit more, because it was just about the one particular thing, as in the board games most of all. It just seemed people were a bit more into it.
Yeah.
And it was just it's just a bit of a nicer thing in some ways, because Comic-Con was more like memorabilia and stuff, like getting things for yourself, like for your collection and things, on there, advertising films and stuff. Whereas it's kind of groups of friends going around in the expo. It's like people were going around to find games to play with their friends, which I think is a much nicer aspect.
It was definitely more of a social element to it than the I don't want to say the commercial side of Comic-Con, but as you say, when you go around there's just stalls with merchandise everywhere, aren't there? Whereas at the Games Expo, you go there's plenty of stalls there selling games and selling various game accessories and things like that, and we picked up a few bits while we were there, didn't we? But at the same time, there is enormous areas that are just devoted to people playing games. It's just tables where you can go and get a game going, and there's a games library there.
That was good.
Thirsty Meeples were looking after, I believe.
Yeah.
But we spent pretty much all our time in Hall 1, didn't we, at the NEC? In Hall 3.
Yeah, there was another one.
There was another one which we actually never got around to, and it was just purely tables for people playing games.
Yeah. Well, we had the hotel for that, didn't we? So
yeah. So we just sort of wandered around. We really did have a good time though, and there was a lot going on. What amazed me was how many stalls there were just selling dice.
Yeah, I liked that one that had normal dice, and then really, really tiny dice, and then really, really big dice.
Massive D20s.
Yeah, that was cool.
I mean, there was so many stalls to look at, and it wasn't all games, was it? Because there was some. I say it wasn't games, but it was RPG books. There were a lot of places selling RPG books. There was.
Just makes it sound like you don't think they're games. But
they are, but I mean they're not sort of board
games.
They're RPGs, and I love RPGs.
I do.
But it was great going around seeing all the different RPG bookstores.
Yeah, some of those look really interesting. Maybe want to be a GM. Maybe start thinking of stories.
Yeah. And there was games that you could go and demo.
Yeah, that was really good.
We did one of those, didn't we? We did a look at a few, but the one that really stood out to me was a game we played called Legends Untold.
Yes, yeah, that was really good, because we saw that on the Saturday, didn't we?
Yeah, and we went back to it on the Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I was looking forward to that. That was the one thing I wanted to do on the Sunday. Make sure we got there and got a table to be able to have a go at Legends Untold, and yeah, it was really good. It
was strange as well, wasn't it? Because we kind of sat down. We thought it was just going to be us, but then we played in a 4-player group with a couple that were there that we'd not known before. And hello, if you're watching this. Honestly, I can't remember their names.
I think we just went by the names that were on our cards, or the names of the the roles that we were playing. So one of them was a student. Well, I remember just thinking that her character was a student, which I thought was quite interesting in a fantasy game.
Yeah, and but there were quite unusual roles. Like you were an evicted noble, I think.
Yes.
I was a forge hand.
Yeah. So, but you didn't.
The other guy was a farm
hand. I thought
hand.
you were going to have, and you didn't. Yeah, you didn't have like the mechanical skill that you needed at one point. But like technically, you were like a different role. So
yeah, I had a hammer, and I had skills that would allow me to mend things. So like if a weapon was broken, I had like bonus points to mending abilities, and I could fix that with my hammer. I had a couple of spears, so I could throw one at range and use
so you
one
had
at melee.
Tokens, didn't you? So we knew how many you had, and then after battle, it was just assumed you picked them up again.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? So that was good, because you were the woman that we were playing with. She was an archer, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So, and you had the choice.
Yeah.
You could be melee or ranged. So you guys were like you were chucking spears and she was firing arrows, and it made combat a lot easier. I thought a lot better.
It was a really interesting system. Just to say a little bit about the game, we all had like a character card with a picture of our character on and some stats for them, and then a few different cards. And some of the mechanics of it really interested me, because like for example with wounds. Instead of just like a normal health system where you take damage, with that your wounds were the cards you had. You had to turn a card over.
You just chose an ability to lose.
Yeah, or you could be even a weapon, couldn't it, as well?
It could be, yeah.
Which would usually be your last choice, particularly because you'd be taking wounds during battle.
Yeah,
but you could turn those over, and if I think was it 3 and you were considered knocked out or something like that, or maybe was it just 3, or was it just because we had that many cards?
I don't know. We only ever got. I mean, I took 2 wounds at some point in time, and then we rested. So
So
when you rest, you just use some time, but you all get healed. So the man that we were playing with, I can't remember what his character was.
He was a farmhand.
He was the farmhand. That's it. So he was wounded, but we didn't rest then.
Yeah,
we
because
thought
it uses the same amount of time to rest.
yeah,
and it heals all wounds.
we all have to rest as well, so we
Yeah.
might as well. So we waited till I was wounded as well, and then we rested and healed both. So.
And there were some really interesting things like that mechanic, the way that the time worked and the resting, the way that the wounds worked. I mean, the actual attacks were resolved through dice, but even that was quite interesting because you got you'd roll 3 dice and apply your result to decide what happened, whether you got a hit, whether you pushed the character back.
Yeah.
What was interesting though was that you if you were engaged in combat, the other characters didn't attack you.
No,
It was
if
just
you rolled low.
If
then
you rolled
got
badly,
hit.
then that was considered their counter attack or parry and thrust sort of thing.
That was interesting.
That was really, really interesting way of doing battle to me.
It seemed like it's an RPG that had enough immersion, I thought. So I did feel like we were actually making decisions and we were on this adventure, but it was so scaled down.
Yeah.
So it was so easy to do. Like partly there was a guy helping us do it, but it's all the maps are on quite small cards with enough detail on them.
And when you go through, you had to connect them, didn't you?
Yes, and you kind of choose which way you go, but then you choose which side to connect. You had to match the light there, didn't you?
You did, yeah. So if you're going out of a cave or into a cave, you'd had it to give you kind of how light that was, and you would then take the next location card and have to match up the most suitable lighting to the so it wasn't just, well, this is where I want to come out. As Richard's saying, you had to kind of match them up. That again was an interesting mechanic.
Yeah, and that kind of determines how easy you are to be seen as you go into the new place, isn't it? So if you've just gone through the darkness, there's a very high chance that you'll be able to see any enemies in the new place before they see you. But you had to roll for that, didn't you?
Yeah.
So Matt was being the scout each time.
So I had to roll and to see what happens.
You got all good rolls for that, didn't you? So we were always on high alert when we went through. So that was good.
What did you think? Because they had a mechanic there. So the games were timed.
Yeah.
And the way that they were timed was you had so many event cards, didn't you, that would make a deck. And I think it was 4. There was 4 different event cards. And they're all face down. And you spend a time by taking the top card off and putting it to the side.
That's
and then when you get down to
it?
we had to keep doing that. It wasn't just for when we rest. Certain things trigger time, didn't they, as they move from locations.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that you do when you enter a place that doesn't cost time because it's on the card already.
It's only certain actions that then cost time.
Yeah. It's like decisions you make. So you always decide to burn time. That's what the guy kept saying. So.
But the way that works is, say you would take the top one and move it over until you got to the bottom one, then you turn that over, and that would be like an event or something.
That was the event.
And you would then have to go through that and fulfill whatever
we got attacked
events
by
were.
bats on one of them.
Yeah, but then you took that card out, didn't you? And so that meant that then the next time you're going through the deck, there was just 3.
So
but then you were doing that
before the next event.
Yeah, and then until eventually you get down to there's just 1 card. That's the event, and once that's gone, the game's over.
Well, yeah. And then you've got 1 more. It's kind of not over, but when you would get to a time when you're going to burn time, you can't do it, so the game's over. Yeah. Because we did quite a few things with no cards left, didn't we? we were still fighting the last boss, weren't we, and stuff like that. So.
And we did pretty well, and some of it was quite pleasing that the chap that was running the demo said to us, that some of the things that had been done in that game, we were the only team that had managed to do.
Actually decided, because I was quite pleased. I found some candles at the start, didn't I? Because I climbed up the cliff to loot this chest or something, and I found some candles, and then it ended up being useful in the next room. So we could actually exhaust the candles to make it a light source, and I think that scared away something or other. So that helped. We were sneaking past things a bit too easily. I think we got the mechanic a little bit wrong, because then another guy came over and clarified, didn't he? So we sneaked past some goblins, but we didn't roll for it.
No, I think we sneaked past them because my scout roll had been quite high, and they were drunk.
So
because they were drunk,
right.
that meant that we could sneak past without a combat. Had they been higher level goblins and not drunken goblins,
and if we
wouldn't
done a
have had
rubbish roll,
then we would have had to fight them because we'd have disturbed them.
Oh, that's alright, yeah. So you can't just sneak past loads of stuff. Yeah.
But I think what you said earlier kind of summed it up in a lot of ways, because you made the point that it was like scaled down.
That's what I liked about it. It was, yeah.
But it didn't feel scaled down. It was scaled down in the sense of we had our character cards and the various cards that we were using, and it was scaled down in the sense that rather than having like a big board, we were using these locations and building this little map with these cards. But it felt like it was a full-on adventure.
It felt like all the best bits of questing, but without the housekeeping stuff you have to do partway through each turn.
It didn't feel like there was loads of things we had to keep account of. It didn't feel like there was any particularly complicated rules.
Basically cards and dice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we were doing a proper adventure.
And they all basically fit into a small box. And I think I said to you at the time that I could imagine taking that game with me when I was going on like a holiday or away for a few nights.
Yeah,
because you could even play that game solo just by taking a couple of characters, because you don't need a GM for it. Because the deck and the decks themselves dictate what happens.
Shuffle the cards and that's it. I mean, we were actually doing an actual scenario, weren't we, where there was meant to be a lost merchant or something. I'm not sure if that was just for the demo, because the guy had the cards in a particular order, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like, normally they would be shuffled, but he wanted to make sure that we experienced certain aspects of the game. So
in like a normal game there might have been more random enemies, more battling going on, but it meant that we could actually play through a little bit of a story and get the various aspects of the game understood. And I actually thought that was probably, out of all the various games that we saw, I would say that would be my #1 game from the Expo. As it was a game that I'd backed on Kickstarter.
That's part of what I liked. That was what part made it so relaxing to just play it, because I didn't feel like they were selling it to us because you'd already bought it. Basically, they were just showing us how it works, and I thought it was really nice.
I said to the guy, one of the guys at the store, that it was really interesting for me to be able to play it, because when I saw it on Kickstarter, it felt like they were saying the game was going to do so much, and yet it seemed like there was so little to it that it didn't really convince me of how it was going to do all these things, how it was going to generate a full campaign, how it was going to give us this real adventure feeling, when it was just a few cards and some dice. And it really, really impressed me how much they were able to do without miniatures and big campaign quest books and without a GM. And I just feel that really is, the game that I most enjoyed, and I am really looking forward to getting come through. And the game itself is really cheap. I mean, I paid I think a little bit more because I got it with an expansion, and there's some booster packs I think you can get separately, which are in the original Kickstarter stuff as well.
Right.
But I think you can get everything for the game for about £50.
Yeah.
But if you just want the base game, which is what we were playing, or part of what we were playing rather, I think you can get that for like £20-25.
Yeah, that is well worth it, I thought, because when we were playing it, I thought I'd quite like to get this as well. But normally I don't think that, because if you get the game, then I'll just play it with you and Heather. So, but I thought I could actually quite easily do little adventures with other people quite easily, and it seemed like something that people would learn to play pretty quick.
And I think I could probably quite enjoy having a few rounds of it solo even. So yeah, that was one of the highlights for me. There was other games we looked at. One was called Far Cry. There was a game called Far Cry that we looked at. I think I looked at it more than you did. I think you were looking at another game at the time.
Okay.
But it's a combat game. There are miniatures in it. Your different mechs and things.
You sure it was Far Cry?
But it was called Far Cry, and you had a map. And I remember saying to the guy, it was Lewis Shaw from Braincrack Games who was showing it to me. I remember saying to him at the time that it kind of reminded me a little bit of like a sci-fi version of Summoner Wars.
Oh, I remember that. I remember it now. Yeah, because you have you have little cards, so you don't know what the miniature is.
Yeah, because the card goes face down as you put it on, and you can when you turn it over, then replace it with your miniature. But it can be things moving around in stealth mode.
Right.
So it's it really interested me, the idea of being able to move my army around without someone else knowing, but at the same time trying to take account and trying to work out what that guy's up to, what that guy's going to do,
so
what armies he's got out, and then when you turn them over and you do battle, it did really interest me. And
so they just detect that there's a unit there, but they don't know what it is. Yeah.
I looked it up when I got back, because I mean it is still available to pre-order.
Right.
I think it's not out till the fourth quarter of 2017,
Mhm.
but it's another one that I thought, you know what, I probably would be interested in getting this, because I didn't get to play it, I just got to look at it and to talk about the game. But it is one that I could quite easily imagine myself enjoying, because I do like Summoner Wars, because it's simplicity, and it seemed like it had a lot of that mechanical simplicity of Summoner Wars, but it had a lot more depth to the game, particularly with the various stats of the units, the fact that you can move around hidden, that hidden movement factor, and I like hidden movement games.
Stratego? Remember we played that, and I know it's not like that, but that's got hidden stuff, hasn't it? You don't know what units things are.
Yeah, so I see what you mean. It's got that sort of element to it. And it was another game that and the miniatures themselves were very good quality. I think it's the first game that company's done with miniatures, but they seem to have done a good job of it. So if you want to have a look at that pre-ordering, go to store.braincrackgames.com. Make sure there's one left for me so I can get a copy of it myself when I've got some cash, because I'm kind of spent up after the expo.
Okay.
But yeah, that was definitely one that I would say to look forward to. But then there were other things as well, because it wasn't just about the games. There was a social element to it. So we had a really great time together. We met up with Ryan and Whittam from London as well, didn't we? We got to play some 4-player games.
Yeah, so that was who we were playing the games with, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mostly.
But I mean, there's just a really great social aspect to that. I mean, we arrived at a hotel on the Thursday, me and you, and we went down to the bar just to go down and grab a drink, and we got invited to go over and play Colt Express.
We played a few games of that.
With a guy called Gary who was there with his son. So Gary and Jaden, if you're watching this, hi.
It's Hayden. You kept saying Jaden.
Did I keep calling him Jaden and his name was Hayden?
Yeah, his name's Hayden.
Oh, sorry, Hayden.
That's why I kept shooting you in the game.
Well, he did shoot me a lot in Colt Express, and I wondered why.
Yeah. But yeah, Colt Express was a really good game, wasn't it? I thought. Yeah.
So we'd never played that, had we? I mean, it's quite a well-known gateway game, but it was just one that I'd never got around to playing, and neither had you.
We played the base game, and then we played the version that's got the horse meeples for our little cowboy meeples to go on. that was cool.
What did you think of Colt Express, Richard?
I liked it. I thought it was nicely simple, but ended up being hard to keep track of, especially when we had the expansion as well. Before that, it wasn't so bad. And the aspect I like of it is the programming.
Yeah.
Which the normal games that I know programming from are Game of Thrones and Room 25. But they're both very different.
You've played others as well, haven't you? Like Forbidden Stars, that's programming.
Yeah,
we played Star Wars Armada.
Yeah,
that was programming.
I'm just limiting it to ones I can remember doing programming.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, but the idea with this one is that we're all putting our cards onto one pile, and then the player who is the first player turns it over, and then you just basically just have to do the moves in order that are coming out. So yeah, most of the time you get to see what other people are going to do, don't you? But on each round there'll be certain times when we're in a tunnel, and that's when the cards are face down.
Yeah, and you don't get to see what people put down. Or other times where you have to put two down together, and people hide the one at the bottom by putting the one at the top visible.
Yes, yeah, that happens as well. So
I actually really enjoyed it. I mean, one of the things, because I do like programming in games.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you can usually do is right up until like you finish programming, you can look back at what you've already done.
Yes.
So like if you mention Room 25, you can check your tokens there, and same with something like Forbidden Stars or Game of Thrones, you can go, hang on a minute, which order did I put down here, and you can have a look. With that, you've purely got to try and remember, because you're all putting them into a central pile, so the second that another card's gone on top, you can't go back and check what's underneath.
No,
which means that sometimes I was there and I was thinking, I've got to put an action down, and I don't know what I've already put down.
Yeah. But I like the fact that when we were playing that game, we did just kind of go with it. If you've forgotten what you did, you just have to be surprised when it turns over.
And there were times where there was like an entire round where, because I'd put something down and someone else had put something down that I didn't know, and kind of stuff me up, it meant that I was trying try and steal something from somebody in the carriage with me, and I was on my own, or I'd be
someone
trying
that
to
wasn't
go
there.
up to someone that by this point had already gone down, and we're just swapping places and
Yeah.
things like that. It was
Yeah,
quite chaotic, but it was fun.
You accidentally go to where the sheriff is.
Yeah.
And get shot, and that was.
Because you've got these little cardboard cutouts of like the trains and the carriages, and you're playing cards to move your meeple around and maybe pick up some treasure, or maybe shoot one of the other miscreants. And there's just so much little things going on that, as you say, the programming is really interesting. It's really important to get it in the right order, because if you play it wrong, you can completely stuff yourself up.
Yeah.
But I found it a lot more easier to work out what I was going to do and plan for what everyone else was going to do when it was the base game. Once we went into, I think the first 2 games we played, it was a base game, and I got quite a big score at the end. But then we went on to the one with the expansion, which was the carriage and the horses and everything.
there was a carriage as well with a shotgun guy on top.
Yeah, and at that one, I was so, I don't know, I just couldn't seem to get my head around the extra aspect of having that carriage and people being able to jump on a horse and move 3 carriages, and and it just, I think I had like an abysmally low score by the end, because there was a couple of times where I was programming actions and everything I programmed went wrong, and so I ended up with like a couple of rounds where I literally did nothing.
Yeah, well,
that's how it goes, and
games.
that's fun. That's the chaotic element to it, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I liked the bullet cards we had. So I thought that was quite thematic because I had like 6 guns, and so you had 6 bullets in your guns, and that was cards. So you had this little deck of cards that starts with 6 bullets on it, and if you shoot someone, you basically give them that card, and basically so you're just giving them a bullet basically, and it just goes into their deck. It's a little bit of a deck builder, isn't it? But you're building it with. You start out where you've got all good cards, and then you end up with these useless bullet cards. So you can just draw a load of cards, and they'll be like, if you've been shot a few times, you could end up just having bullets. And I thought that was quite a good aspect, because it wasn't terrible getting shot, but it just made future rounds more annoying.
So that was another enjoyable game we played there. There was one of the things at the expo as well that was nice was the cosplayers. There was a lot of cosplayers going around. We got to meet a number of them. We got to have some pictures taken with them.
Yeah, there was a little corner that was like for cosplay.
It's like an event stage, wasn't it? And they had a lot of cosplay events and skits going on there.
Yeah.
Little comedy performances that some of the cosplay characters were doing.
I like Ramsey with Reek. He was
Bolton.
funny. Yeah. And just that little show that they did, where they all kind of went across. I mean, we just watched that on the Friday, wasn't it?
We saw that on the Friday, and we watched them again, I think, in one of the... Was it the Saturday? Cause I remember I think it was a Saturday, we were queuing to get into the Bring and Buy, and there was an enormous queue, and it took us ages to go through, but we were entertained because there was little skits going on and stuff still at the cosplay stage. So we just were watching that while queuing to get into the Bring and Buy, which was just ideal, really. But yeah, there was a lot going off in that corner, and that's where a lot of the cosplayers seem to hang around and stuff if you wanted to meet and have pictures taken.
But they were kind of advertising the cosplay stuff in a way. But when we went round it seemed like the stuff wasn't actually for sale. It was.
Was it? There was like there was an area that was behind, in the same area as the events. It was kind of between the events area and the Bring and Buy.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff was for sale. They were selling. There was like a table with a few things, so you could get like a steampunked R2D2, which just looked really cool. But
not
it was
cosplay. I'm just talking about the cosplay stuff.
Oh yeah, well they had some of the props that were there. I think were for sale, but most of them I think were just like displaying the things that they've made and stuff like that. And I actually quite like looking at that. I mean, there was some pretty interesting stuff. Like there was a Mandalorian sniper rifle there, and some
that
various...
had a harpoon in it. That was good. Yeah,
and that was interesting. And I think also a lot of the cosplayers were using that as a place to organise like the cosplay events, and I think they were going there to sort of do any little repairs they needed to do to the cosplay and stuff. But you were welcome to sort of go in there, have a picture taken, and look at the various props. And it was basically like a props display, the area that was being used for this. And some of the stuff there, as I say, was made to an incredibly high quality. So that was fun to go and wander around. I met Tabitha Leons, who's a cosplayer that I've I like.
She was
just
being Captain Nimue.
Yeah, from Wild West Exodus. So
They were advertising that for the whole thing, weren't they?
yeah, it was.
Looked
There were
pretty
banners
cool.
all around for it, wasn't it? It was like a Wild West game that has steampunk elements, science fiction elements. There's aliens
So she was being
in
a
the
bit more
Wild West.
professional, wasn't she? So
Yeah,
but
she's a
she was
professional
actually getting
cosplayer.
Paid for that, but
Yeah.
there was lots of people just who dressed up as characters they liked, and there was a few Final Fantasy people, and there's a Skyrim guy, which was cool, but I never got to get a picture with him.
No, we wanted to see him.
I
Didn't
kept
we?
seeing him sometimes, but like we were in the queue when we saw him again. Yeah.
We'll find you next year, Skyrim guy.
Yeah.
But there was a lot, and there was some pretty good cosplayers. Some of those cosplayers were very good, and I just love seeing people go around in cosplay, whatever level of talent or ability.
I like the whole idea of cosplay. It just makes it such a nice event.
Well, it's like, I gave to charity because Ariel and Belle asked me to. I mean, there's not many times you asked to
did a
donate to
photo.
charity by Disney princesses, and that's how you collect for charity. And it's just great fun to be able to be somewhere and see beloved childhood characters walking past, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice to just see that other people remember these characters as well. It's not all new things that are coming out that are being pushed. It's like just whatever character you liked, even if it's from a film from years ago, or like one episode of a program from years ago, and just go as that character if you want to. And I felt like doing some more cosplay again. We've done it a few times, haven't we? Like at Comic-Con and stuff. So, but it's been nice to go to a few events without worrying about it and just enjoy the fact that other people are in cosplay, because it is such a hassle going in a costume into, like when I went as Dr. Horrible, it was so the lab coat was fine, but those goggles, just like wearing them on my head the entire time,
But this is one of the things, and I will say this because I was having a conversation after the expo with Richard and with some others about cosplay, and one of our friends made the point that they feel really nervous about approaching a cosplayer and saying hello and asking for a picture. And I made the point to them, well, actually, that's what cosplayers love, because they love to see that you've recognised that character, and asking for a picture with somebody in cosplay is basically the biggest way of saying that's an awesome cosplay that you can do.
I like to call them by the character name as well. Like go up and ask it, like that Alice. I went and asked her, Alice, can I get a photo? She was Alice from Madness Returns, so she was the scary version. Oh, that was a really cool one.
And she did a great face as well for the picture, didn't she? That proper sort of...
she actually looked crazy.
And there was quite a few there, weren't there? I mean, we met Electra. There was a really interesting, for me anyway, Captain Scarlet group.
Yeah, they were, and I like when they got interviewed and they were saying they were looking for more captains and stuff. Like, I imagine if we go to some more events, we might just see more and more.
And I had a picture with Captain Scarlet, Captain Ochre, and Captain Black.
Oh, they were shooting you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good photo.
So there was some very good cosplay, and that's always something I enjoy when I go to these sort of conventions. We got to meet Tom Vassell and Sam Healy as well from the Dice Tower, which was really good. Especially, I don't know if I've already told you this before, but when I was contemplating whether or not to make the Meddlesome Meeples, one of the things I saw was a panel from last year's UK Games Expo, which was Tom Vassell from the Dice Tower, Rodney from Watch It Played. You remember Rodney, everyone's favourite Canadian rules explainer?
Oh yeah, he does it in a really smiley way.
He's such a nice guy. And Jamie from the Secret Cabal, and they did a panel talking about content creation and what sort of things to think about when you're starting whether it's a blog or a podcast or a YouTube channel or anything like that. And it was a really good panel, and it gave me some extra impetus to start the Meddlesome Meeples, because I was already thinking about it at the time but wasn't sure about a few things, and so it was quite nice to actually get to meet Tom Vassell and talk to him about some of those things that he talked about on that panel. So that was nice for me. And Sam Healy was such a nice guy, and his number one game's Twilight Imperium, so we got to talk about how we played Twilight Imperium with him. Yeah,
because we'd all just had 2 days of playing that, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah. And I can't wait to play Twilight Imperium another time. So we played Twilight Imperium. We actually, in the hotel room, one of the guys in our group brought 2 folding tables.
Yeah.
So we had to like move the 3rd bed out of the way, set up these 2 massive folding tables between my bed and Richard's bed. And we started playing on the Thursday night and then went back to it on the Friday night. But it just made like you'd wake up in the night with this light hitting on our Empire in the middle of the room.
Yeah, the lights in the room were pretty weird, and we could end up... We could actually leave one tiny light on just pointing at Twilight Imperium. So we could actually see our empires in the night. It was just... Yeah, it's not often you can just sleep next to your space empire.
So that was fun. As I say, there was just so much. I mean, obviously, we have too much to talk about on one podcast, really. But I would say it would be good to be planning for next year if you're wanting to attend. I am planning to attend. It's reached the status of being the 3rd biggest tabletop convention in the world.
How many are there?
Loads.
Okay, that's all right then.
Loads.
It's not just 3, everybody.
Yeah. It's not just a nice way of saying it comes last. It is enough. And I would say this because I'm going to ask Richard in a minute what he would say to anybody thinking about going to the expo. But before I do that, I will say this. The people that are working at the expo, so the guys in the yellow shirts that are going around looking after everybody, all of those people are volunteers. They're not paid. They're doing it for the love of games, for the love of the convention. So if you have to ask any of them for help with anything or ask for any directions, if any of them make any requests to you, please work along with them and please thank them for what they're doing, because if it wasn't for these guys, we wouldn't have this amazing event to go to. And it is truly an amazing event. I absolutely loved it. And it's these guys and their hard work and volunteer work, and they're there before we are on the Friday. They're there on the Thursday, and I think some cases they have to be there Wednesday to start getting things set up. So it is a huge task that they do for free. So be nice to them and thank them, and if you can, buy them a beer. So Richard,
they're going to be drunk now.
Thinking about what we did at this expo and what we experienced there, what advice would you give to anybody that was thinking about going next year?
Hard to give away the stuff that I want to do next year because otherwise my stuff might not work. But no,
he's not going to reveal his fiendish plans in full.
Yeah, not my fiendish plans. But if you want to go to the Bring and Buy and you are not bringing a game, if you just want to go and have a look round, you don't have to queue up with everybody, because we did for a while, didn't we? We weren't bringing games to it, so we actually kind of wasted a bit of time in the morning. Although I don't know if that kind of held us back too much because we was just relaxing. But there is like the cash only line, so that's one thing. You can just kind of go straight in. Though on the Sunday, the cash only line was the long line, wasn't there? Because everybody already brought their games. Yeah. So
if you're there on the Friday morning, make sure you're in the right queue. I mean, we how long were we queuing? About 20 minutes before we realised that we didn't have to be in that queue. And we're thinking, why is everybody carrying all these games in here?
Yeah, but we kind of went off to find that girl who was Yuna. We went off and got some photos with some cosplayers while Ryan and Simon were still in the queue. So that was all right. But yeah. That, and also depending who you're going with and how many games they're likely to get, think about space in your car.
Yes.
Because we found it logistically a bit difficult on the last day, and we we managed it, didn't we? Just. So what we did was the games that we'd got, because I'd got some as well, which I wasn't really expecting to buy many games when I was there, but I bought a few that looked like really good deals, and so we put a few of the games in the boot of the car, and then we had to take the rest of them to the expo with us because we'd had to check out the hotel, and this was the problem, and that was one of the most difficult walks we've ever done.
That really did feel like a quest.
Basically.
It felt like some sort of death march. I was just like dying as I was walking along, thinking, will we ever get to the expo? Or are these games going to kill me?
Yeah, we got awarded a lot of experience for that.
Yeah.
So that how we leveled up is by remembering to think about the car space next time. But yeah, so we went and got one of the shop and drop boxes and just put them in there, and then they were safe.
Yeah,
and
we didn't have to carry them around.
Shop and drop was great as well. Make sure you get a shop and drop box, because even if you buy just a few games, you want to be able to wander around and look at the rest of them and just relax and have a drink and just play a few of the games. And if you're looking a few game boxes around, it makes it less fun. So yeah, try and get a shop and drop box, because like you're saying about the volunteers, like the people there were really great, and it only costs a couple of pounds to get one of those. So yeah, those are the main bits of advice, because I think the rest of it, just by going, you will enjoy it.
I think advice I would give would be, if you can, take maybe a small bottle of water or something with you, because it does get quite warm depending on where you are. Like in the bringing by, because there were so many bodies around, it does get warm.
You spent more time there than me.
Yeah. Take cash if you can rather than card. Because that way, it's easier to keep control of or keep note of how much you're spending. But for example, in the bring and buy, it is cash only, and I didn't really have a problem with any of the stalls not taking card. I was expecting that some of them, like last year, wouldn't have the readers, but every stall I went to, they did. But even so, you'll need the cash for the bring and buy. There are some good places inside where you can get something to eat and drink. Obviously, some of the prices on there aren't great, but it saves carrying food around with you or whatever. But I would definitely say take a small bottle, and if you can, maybe a small backpack just to put some of your little bits and bobs in. That might be useful. I mean, I had an IKEA bag that I took and filled up as I was going round, but it was a nightmare to carry, wasn't it?
Yeah,
because it just digged in when it was quite bulky and it digged into your fingers. So next year I might just take a backpack or rucksack or something like that instead.
The guy actually selling bags especially for games, wasn't there? That had compartments in, but just for what you were carrying that day particularly, that wouldn't have really helped.
No,
but I think ordinarily it would help to have something like that.
So so there are some things I would definitely say. Wear comfortable shoes, because you're going to be doing a lot of walking.
Yeah, well, I did think ahead and do that. So
yeah. And if you're a guy like me, maybe take some deodorant with you, because you might need to put a little bit on after you've been walking around lugging loads of games all over the place. For everybody else's sake. But I didn't feel like I needed a coat or a jumper or anything like that, because it was so warm.
Warm,
if I turned up with like a jumper and a coat and hat and everything, I think I would have probably got too hot very quickly.
I think we were very fortunate that one day when we just got back to the hotel and then it started chucking it down.
Yes.
So,
but there is a cloakroom there.
Yeah. Just take a coat.
Yeah, just outside like the main entrance, there is a cloakroom. So if you think it might rain that particular day and you're not maybe getting on the bus or a taxi back to the car, then you can drop your coat and bag off or whatever at the cloakroom, and they'll look after that there for you. So it is quite a well managed, well looked after event, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to next year now.
And there's different places you can eat. I mean, we went to like a little patisserie place a few times, and they did some really nice drinks and had a sandwich there. But there's obviously the typical NEC food markets at the edges, but we tended to go outside and go around to the Weatherspoons for something to eat as well, didn't we?
That was only just outside where the convention was, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was nice.
I mean, it's not a normal that they do it, but this year, because of certain recent tragic incidents, we did have to have our bag searched as we went through.
But
that
was 1 second.
Yeah, and they were very friendly, because I was thinking, they're going to start tossing stuff out the bag and everything, but it was actually really professionally done, very quickly, very friendly.
Just glance.
Didn't feel like it was intrusive or anything at all.
No, they weren't judging you for what games you were bringing in.
And people there were just happy. I mean, people would just love talking about things that they care about. So, I'd just be at a stall looking at a game or something, and the person next to me would say something to me, or I'd say something to them, and we'd just get talking. And it was just a really nice atmosphere, I would say.
Yeah, well, I ended up getting a game because the guy next to me recommended it. So, yeah, and it was a good price. So.
And there was a lot of accessories. I mean, I was hoping to get some more coins, which I didn't really get this time. Cause
we only saw a few of them, didn't we?
Yeah, and I think they seemed to sell out a lot on the first day. But if you wanted dice, you could get as many dice as you could carry, and then some.
I might be getting more dice next year. I think there's a few games I'd like to get next year, after I've enjoyed the games that we've already got. But I think also just getting some of the accessories to just like trick out some of the games we've already got. Yeah. I mean, that was quite inspiring, seeing like the amount of different accessories and expansions and extra minis and extra dice and sleeves for cards you can get, and alternate boxes for the games.
Yes.
That's amazing. There was, people had done these like chests specially designed for certain games. You don't have to keep them in the cardboard box anymore. So if you're going to keep the game forever, that would be.
They're very good if you wanted to get like the expansions and keep everything in one place and together. I mean, one of the other things I found was, as we were going round, was on the Sunday, towards the end of the day, some of the sellers reduced the prices on stuff so that they can, because they'd rather sell it than maybe take it back with them. But cause someone had said to me, if there's anything you particularly want, maybe wait until the Sunday and you might get it cheaper. But of course, then you run the risk of it selling out. So, for example, there was a couple of games on my hit list that I wanted. Yeah. So, like Ethnos and New Angeles, and I didn't get them. I didn't get Yamatai either.
You just picked it up on the last day. I remember you asking a guy for it, and then you picked it up and then didn't get it because from the bring and buy, it was cheaper, wasn't it? So yeah.
But if you do wait, as I say, to the Sunday, then you run the risk. Because I saw a game called Rune Wars, which we bought, I think it was on the Saturday maybe, from Chaos Cards.
About that one because there's two.
Well, it's kind of strange because there's Rune Wars and there's Rune Wars. There's Rune Wars with it all one word.
You just emphasise.
And then there's Rune Wars that is all one word.
Rune Vars.
And then there's Rune Wars with it, Rune and Wars being separate words. Yeah. And they are completely separate games, both made by Fantasy Flight Games. Where it's just a little bit unnecessarily confusing. It is. But the one I got was the recent one that came out, and I paid £70 for that. Now, that I thought was a cracking deal because on the internet, the cheapest I can get it from the same company was £10 more, £80. So I was really happy to get it for 70. So then we wandered around. But then on the next day, they'd reduced that price to 65. Yeah. Which kind of annoyed me until I went around the corner and saw another seller selling it for 89. Yeah. So definitely shop around because some of the new stuff is quite varied in prices because some of the companies are able to do it cheaper. The other thing is that some of the stuff I saw in the bring and buy, I got some fantastic deals, but some people were definitely being overly optimistic with their prices. I mean, I saw prices that were in excess of second hand what they were available new in the stalls outside. And in some cases, I mean, we got some cracking deals. I mean, you got Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective for £10 second hand. Yeah. Someone else was trying to sell the same copy there for, well, not the same copy, but Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective second hand at £40. Yeah. And then there were others where it was new at £30, and it's kind of, you just got to shop around. Don't just pick it up and go, yeah, I'm going this and walk out.
You can kind of tell sometimes what's a good price for something and what's over the top.
And if you are selling something in the bring and buy, make sure that you secure the game, because there were boxes where people had tried to either not organise it properly inside, or they tried to put like expansions and stuff into the main box, and it was bursting. And like you were finding little bits and pieces of components just spread around because it had just burst open, and
lost pieces. And meeples.
And that's just tragic. Yeah. So definitely make sure if you're selling anything that you make sure it's complete, and if it's not, mark on the box that it's incomplete, because otherwise you're going to end up with a very disappointed gamer.
Yeah. And that would be sad as well.
Yeah. But overall, we thoroughly enjoyed the UK Games Expo. So
we did.
We are recommending that for next year. We're going to be there ourselves.
I'm looking forward to it next year.
We've already booked our hotel room.
Yeah.
And we're very excited about that one already.
Yeah, I look forward to more gaming there.
Yeah, definitely. So if you get the chance, check it out. There are a lot of smaller games conventions through the year, so I might nip to one or two of those just to keep
just to keep you going.
keep me going until the next expo. But definitely check out some of those gaming conventions.
Yes.
Well, that was fun. Let's carry on with the show. The Meeples Alive!
Hello, welcome to the Bard's Corner.
Okay, so we've got some tour information first off this month. We've got news through regarding tours for the Graham Bonnet Band, Dirty Thrills, FM and Vega. Now, both the Graham Bonnet Band and Dirty Thrills have got quite a number of dates. They're playing through June and through July, whereas FM and Vega have only got one or two in the July period. So if you want to catch any of those gigs, you need to check those out sooner rather than later. That information is on the tour section of paradiserock.co.uk, so if you want to see that, then check that out. Some other news we've got for you. First of all, on the 7th of July, Mr. Big have got a new album coming out.
That's a good one.
Defying Gravity. We've only had a preliminary listen to that one, haven't we?
Yeah, I like what I've heard.
You said you thought it reminded you very much of a thunder sound this time.
I did. I wasn't sure. I didn't know it was Mr. Big when you put it on. But yeah, I thought it had quite a thunder. Yeah. There's
one track on there in particular I quite liked called 1992. You can check out the audio for that on YouTube at the moment. That's got a bit of quite a rhythm and blues feel to it, and it's got a very traditional Mr. Big sound. Now, for this album, it is the original members. So you've got Paul Gilbert, Eric Martin,
cool.
Billy Sheehan and Pat Torpey on the drums. However, it's not just Pat Torpey doing the drums, because sadly it's recently had a diagnosis of Parkinson's. So there's another drummer as well filling in on the songs that he couldn't perform on, a guy called Matt Starr. Now Matt Starr is fairly well known session drummer. He's been on a number of other albums. But having listened through to that album, it is quite a good one. We just haven't done a full review for it yet on Paradise Rock.
Do you wish you had his name?
Matt Starr. It does sound cooler than Matt Williams, but not quite as cool as Max Power.
Oh, maybe I just like the idea of Heather Starr.
Well, you can be my star.
Oh, thank you.
One album that we did want to talk about to you in a little bit more depth this time round was Gothica by 10. Now, we mentioned on a previous Bard's Corner that 10 have a new album coming out on the 7th of July. We have been listening to it a fair bit this last week.
Yeah.
And I'd say if you are a 10 fan, this for me could easily fit into one of their top 5 albums.
I think it's a lot more like the older stuff they did.
More so than any of the other recent ones. Now, there's some absolutely fantastic songs on there. Some of my favourites included a song called Travellers, La Luna Dracula.
That's one of my favourites as well.
That actually, it's kind of funny because it's got a much more feel-good factor. Yeah, La Luna Dracula. It's great listening to Gary sing that one as well. But you would expect that to have quite a dark, sinister sound to it. But it's got a real feel-good factor.
There's a lot of upbeat songs.
There is a lot of upbeat songs on this, and there's a couple of songs on there that I thought would really fit into any sort of commercial rock radio. One of those in particular, In My Dreams. I really like that one. And the other one was Welcome to the Freak Show.
Oh yeah, that was actually quite a strange one. I thought I liked it. It was good, but when it first started, I was like, "What?"
It's got like a circusy fairground.
It's a big good one to open. Doing it live.
Yeah.
With the beginning bit.
That was a very good song. Another one called Jekyll and Hyde, which I think is going to be the second track released from the album. That was quite a catchy one as well. But there was a few other ones. I mean, there was The Wild King of Winter.
That's a good one.
I really love that track. It starts off quite slowly.
It's quite a powerful one.
It's got almost a very sorrowful piece of music at the beginning, but from there it goes on to really fantastic beats, some really good solos. Daryl Treesperch is very good on there on the keys as well. So one of the other highlights for me was Into Darkness, the very last song on the album.
Yes,
I love that, and I love
that on quite a lot.
I played that quite a bit. I like the theme to it as well. It sort of starts off with like an old cinema movie reel, and then you get Gary Hughes start singing, a cinematic masterpiece, In Ashes on the Mantelpiece, A Luminescence Time Could Never Fade. One of the things I've always liked about 10 is the lyrics that Gary Hughes writes. They are very, very poetical in nature. They tell great stories. almost saga-like, and you can think of some of the examples from their back catalogue. Songs like Red, Arcadia, The Robe, anything from Babylon, which was a full concept album. And this album really does carry that through.
It really does, yeah.
All the way through, we're on various stories. So, for example, there's one where we're on the Crusades. There's another one where, as I say, it's all about like forgotten film starlets and the fickleness of Hollywood. There's other ones where we are riding with the damned in La Luna Dracula, and there's some just absolutely fantastic different stories that are being told
even like
through these
songs.
songs.
Like In My Dreams is more about how maybe a lot of people like into their geeky nerdy things were like their mindset as a kid and the sort of things that they were into.
Is that how you interpreted that one, is it?
Pretty much, but I was kind of thinking, this reminds me of what Matt was like. It must have been your childhood.
Well, you did say it reminded me of you. I thought it was just for a different reason. But there are some absolutely fantastic story-based songs on this, and I say it takes you on a real journey. The first song that came off the album, Paragon, funnily enough, that having listened to the full 10-track album,
that's my least favourite.
That's actually my least favourite. I thought it's not that I don't like Paragon, because I do like Paragon.
Yeah.
The more I listen to Paragon, the more I like Paragon. There's just that
better ones on there.
Every other song on that album is superior, and I did give it a 9.5 for Paradise Rock.
I still think that's mean. I'm sorry, that is really mean.
It may end up being like the only album that I've reviewed and then later gone back and changed the rating upwards.
I think it's mean. Half a point. No.
Because I do absolutely love this album. Now, right back at the beginning of the year when I first heard Eclipse Monumentum, that I was thinking is undoubtedly going to be the album of the year for me. It was absolutely fantastic, really up-tempo. Unlike this album, with Momentum, I could pick off my favourite track quite easily, which was Never Look Back by Eclipse. That was just an amazing song. With this one, I'm finding it a little bit more difficult to decide which of the songs on this album is my favourite, because there are so many good songs.
Not just that, but I mean, we've like 10 for quite a while. You're a lot longer than me, and you've spoken to Gary Hughes, and you know what they're capable of. I think you have a lot higher expectation, to be honest.
Well, possibly so. I mean, I always expect a very high standard from 10, and I would say that this meets with that standard. It is absolutely fantastic. On Paradise Rock, I described it as a rich tapestry of an album full of beautifully written songs with fantastic guitars, great rhythm, and keys, all overlaid with the rich voice of Gary Hughes. It is one of my albums of the year, without a doubt. So far, this and Monumentum by Eclipse are vying for the number 1 spot, and I won't make my decision until the end of the year, after which I'll have listened to them both a lot more.
We're gonna have a fallout if you don't put it up to 10. It's not fair. You've got to give it's 10 out of 10 for 10.
Well, it could well be ending up being revised upwards, because the more the more I've been listening to it, and funnily enough, quite often once I've reviewed an album, I don't then go back and listen to it again for a little while, because I usually listen to it quite a lot before I write the review. So then I'll listen to maybe the next album I'm going to review or something else. This time round, within a day or so of having finished the review, I wanted to go back and listen to some of those tracks again.
And I was enjoying it. You'll like this one.
Yeah, I was enjoying it even more at that point. So it could well be that this will be like the only album I've ever revised upwards, which would take it from a 9.5 to a perfect 10.
Yeah,
so
you might have some encouragement.
So yeah, it is an absolutely fantastic album. I can't recommend this one enough. I'd actually, by the time it got to track 3, which was The Travellers, I'd been and pre-ordered it for myself on Amazon, just because it's absolutely fantastic. As I say, so many songs on there that were vying for my favourite song on the album, because there was, Wild King of Winter, A Man for All Seasons, which again I absolutely loved. And the beginning of that track, it sounds like it puts you into the mind of being in some sort of medieval joust. The way that, the trumpets and everything. It's just absolutely incredible album. If you're a 10 fan, this is going to have you salivating. But if you want to get a full review of this, go to paradiserock.co.uk. We've got the review on there. I actually talk about every single song on the album in the review, which again is something I don't normally do, but it's a testament to how much I really enjoyed this album that I wanted to talk about every one.
9.5! You're going to get some horrible comments.
Well, as I say, it at the time I wrote it, it would have been a 9.5. I think if I was writing that review now, I think I would possibly be leaning more towards the 10. So, as I say, by the time this airs, people might go and check out the review on paradiserock.co.uk. See me dropping the website address in there again. They might go to paradiserock.co.uk to check it out again and
leave comments.
Well, they might leave comments. They're welcome to leave comments because I'd love to see what people think about it. But by the time they get there, this could well be a 10. As I say, it's out on July the 7th via Frontiers Music SRL. Whether or not you are a fan of 10 already, please check this album out. Now, I say that because Gary Hughes and 10 have been around. Well, Gary Hughes has been around as a solo artist before 10. 10 have been around as a band for 22 years. The only original members, or the longest serving members of the band, obviously Gary Hughes is the main singer-songwriter, John Halliwell and Steve McKenna. Yep. The others have been around. This will be their third album as a collective unit, which is Dan Rosengarner, Steve Grocott, both as guitarists, because of course 10 has 3 guitarists, because 1 or 2 just isn't enough for the music they play. Max Yates on the drums, and Daryl Treespurch on keys. Now, we know Daryl, don't we? What's his nickname? What do we call him?
He's gonna kill me.
Well, I say what we call him. It's what his general nickname is. It's
I don't do Facebook much.
Daryl the Shadow.
That's it. I know it was something with
People
S,
call him
and I didn't want to be.
He's had that nickname, the Shadow, for a long time. But to be honest, he's like the only person I know whose real name is cooler than his nickname. I mean, the Shadow's quite a cool nickname, but Treespurch, that's a pretty cool surname. Daryl Treespurch. Also, if you're a prog fan, he plays with Nth Ascension, doesn't he? So, but yeah, be sure to check this one out. They've had a long musical history. This is their 13th studio album, and for a band to stay together this long, there's usually a good reason for it. Yeah. There's still an audience for what they do even after all this time. But as you said earlier, this goes back to very much in the vein of some of their early albums.
Yeah. I think a lot of long-term fans will be very happy with it.
Much better produced than the original, than the early albums. But that sort of feel of the epic songs, and I mean the Grail I think is about 8 minutes.
Yeah, they've got a lot longer songs, haven't they? Yeah.
So be sure to check that one out. There is another album I wanted to talk to you briefly about. We've not done a full review of this album, but that was All 41 is the name of the band, World's Best Hope. Now, I've only listened to about half the songs on this album, so it'll probably be getting a full review at a later date, but it is essentially like an AOR supergroup. On the vocals is Terry Brock, who was the lead singer of Giant, lead singer of Strange Ways. Also Robert Berry on vocals and on bass. Gary Phil from Boston on guitar. We've also played with Sammy Hagar. And the aforementioned Matt Starr. He's played with Ace Frehley, and as I've already said in this episode, with Mr. Big as well on drums. So this is a melodic rock supergroup, cool. And some of their stuff, if you like Giant, if you like Strange Ways, if you like 3 or Alliance, this is an album that you'll want to check out. That's again out on the 7th of July. Some really beautiful melodic rock on that album. Looking forward to having a full review of that at a later time. But as I say, if you want to check out any more of these tour dates, read any bit more about the albums that we've been talking about, please go to paradiserock.co.uk. Check that out. You can also find Paradise Rock on Facebook and Twitter. So please be sure to stay with us for all your melodic rock music needs.
How many times can you say Paradise Rock in one?
What can I say? We don't get many sponsors.
The heat's getting to us. We're melting.
We are genuinely melting here in the studio. It is so warm.
We didn't put the fan on so that you could hear us better. That's how much we care.
We are going to be jet blasting air straight into our faces as soon as this recording is finished.
Oh yeah.
Enjoy the heat, have a beer, and stay meddlesome.
Bye.
Tiny Meeples, big talk.
And and welcome to this episode of Tiny Meeples Big Talk.
Can you tell what we're going to talk about?
Yep, you guessed it, Star Wars.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're normally cross-genre, aren't you?
Richard did once point out, we talked about Star Wars on our last Tiny Meeples Big Talk, didn't we?
Yeah.
And Richard did once point out that we have to keep a real balance between the two, and if we didn't, the punishments were horrific.
They are.
So here we are this week to talk to you about Star Trek. Now, this was an idea that Richard had, which was who would you pick to make the all-star bridge crew?
Yeah, like, who would you pick to be your crew, basically? If you were going to pick a crew to run a starship, a Star Trek starship, it doesn't matter which one. I mean, you can also pick which ship, I suppose. But obviously each character fulfills different roles, and in each series you've got different characters doing the same kind of jobs. So if you could choose from between all of them, which ones would it be? Now,
we did think briefly about this. Astrometrics, there's only real... Because you said there was no astrometrics officer with some of the other ships.
Well, I kind of thought 7 was the only one out of main ones. And you pointed out there was one in Enterprise, you say?
I kind of was right and wrong in that, because I thought about it, because I said to you, I'm fairly sure there was one. What they had on the Next Generation was a stellar cartography department, and there was a head of stellar cartography, a Lieutenant Darren. She only appeared in one episode, and she was a love interest for Picard. But that was stellar cartography, not astrometrics. But later on, they repurposed the stellar cartography lab and converted it into an astrometrics lab. But they never really mentioned I think it was season 7 of Star Trek Next Generation, but they never really had a specific astrometrics officer. So what we decided was that everybody gets to have a 7 of 9 on their crew.
Yeah, because I kind of just thought she invented it as a department.
Yeah.
Because she and Harry built that astrometrics lab, and they basically modelled the whole galaxy there, didn't they? And I thought that was an amazing idea.
Yeah.
And
I think she was the first person to officially have, particularly as a recurring role, that role of astrometrics officer.
Yeah,
but
it wasn't of it as a program. Like, if you were basically the main roles that are in the TV program, what you can have, and for that, I mean, you also get Keiko being a botanist, but you don't need to have a botanist in every ship. No. Things like that can be basically in the science department. I wouldn't mind if everybody got a Keiko for the ship, because every ship, botany would be a part of it, but it wouldn't be a bridge officer role, would it? No.
And what we've been mainly thinking of is the main department head roles.
Get a plant up here, quick!
Yeah.
But certain departments would have certain roles in it, but we're kind of thinking of department heads, basically, aren't we?
So we've all said that as a freebie, we'll start off with astrometrics, and everyone gets a 7 of 9.
So okay, 7.
7 of 9. So thinking about this, Richard, had you decided who was going to be your ship's chief engineer?
The chief engineer, I thought of that. Well, just personally, I would like to have B'Elanna, just because she. I just like that character that she has. They're all competent, in every single show, and Scotty would always be kind of telling you that he can't do things, then he can do things.
Well, he is a miracle worker.
Yeah, but then he did kind of let the game away when he said that's what he does. And LaForge does a similar thing. I really like
LaForge is cool, and he's incredibly efficient. He's an excellent engineer.
Yeah,
but he's quite straight cut, isn't he? In a way. But he is a very cool character.
O'Brien has a lot of personal demons, and I like him, but I kind of like him being on DS9 and playing around in the holodeck, doing the Alamo and stuff like that. It seemed like he's happier there than on a starship. I thought you're getting mad at
I have to admit, for my engineer, I was kind of torn. I mean, I thought of Geordie and dismissed Geordie for the reasons I said, because he's a very straight cut character, and he's he's a really good character. But I thought that some of the others just had more interesting things. I mean, you mentioned you discarded O'Brien because of some of his personal demons. Well, that was one of the reasons why I was sort of thinking O'Brien.
Yeah,
he wasn't my
you
actual
wanted him for
choice.
that,
Yeah, but that was it. Because I like crew that have got some variation. I mean, I was really tempted with Scotty because Scotty is just I grew up admiring Scotty.
Engineer.
But I went for Balana as well.
Did you?
I went
that's
for
right
BLT.
then. Okay, so you've got BLT. Yeah, and I like the way she always calls Harry Starfleet, even though she's back in Starfleet as well now.
Well, she's incredibly feisty. She's got so much spirit. I mean, she reminds me in that way of Kira Nerys. They've both had similar backgrounds. I mean, she's half human, half Klingon, so she has different cultural things to deal with.
I mean, she was doing the same fight as Kira, wasn't she? Basically, when she was
against the Cardassians.
Yeah.
And, but she is an amazing engineer, and I don't think sometimes people give her credit, because, I mean, just think how difficult it was to keep that starship running in the Delta Quadrant.
I was thinking a lot about the times when Janeway was really impressed with Balana's engineering skills and stuff and knowledge. It's like, even though she couldn't live by the Academy's rules and did better under the Marquis, she was a brilliant engineer, and you just have to cope with a bit of her punching people in the face, stuff like that. But the rest of the time, a great engineer.
So we've actually, I didn't think we'd both go for Balana, but we have both gone for Balana. So pick an officer.
Which officer?
Any officer.
Oh, okay. Who have you got for science officer?
Science. Now, again, this was one where I was really torn, but only between two characters here. Actually, no, I say that. My first thought was, a bit of a, shall I go with Spock, or shall I go with Data?
Yeah.
But Data sort of fulfilled the science officer's role, but he was technically not the science officer. He was technically he kind of filled that capacity, but he was the operations officer.
Operations officer, yeah.
But in the end, I made the choice with Jadzia Dax.
Oh, right, yeah, that's a nice one. Yeah.
Dax, again, one of my favourite characters in there. She used to be at times described as a bit of an action Barbie. But she was an incredibly intelligent... Not by me, no. She was an incredibly intelligent character. Having the Dax symbiont gave her quite a lot of dimensions.
And she loved life. Same as Dr. McCoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice when characters are like that.
And she could draw on so much life experience that I thought I had to have her on my crew in some capacity.
Yeah.
And I was kind of torn because I initially wrote her down for the helm or flight controller position.
Right.
But in the end, I went for science officer.
Okay, so she was your science officer.
So,
for me, I've gone with Spock.
You went with Spock.
Yeah, just because... for one thing, it's just the classic, and it's such a great character, and also just the sheer. Well, they've all got the knowledge basically, but I mean Spock's got so much knowledge, and it's like it would be nice to have at least one character being logical. Above all else.
That might be a problem with my crew.
It kind of offsets the Balana characters. You've got Balana very emotional, but she still knows her stuff. But then Spock is going to be bringing the logic even at the expense of everything else. Like you've seen when Spock was in charge, like in the Galileo 7, things like that, and how it doesn't go very well. But when it's with other characters, and when he's not directly in command, then he's a really great character to have. And I just thought it'd be great to be on a ship that has Spock.
I was so torn because I really wanted Spock on the crew, but I just, as I say,
making a party planner.
Yeah, Dax had even more years of experience because of the symbiote. And
some of the lives she was just dossing. So
some of them, some of them. And I even thought of Data in that role.
I mean, I was
capacities. I think he could outperform Spock, but there was just kind of like a childhood in my head of watching the original series and wanting Spock on the crew. And I didn't find a place for him in the end.
The ship I'm imagining being on is Voyager, partly because I'm wearing this, which you told me was an actual prop from Voyager, which is why doesn't fit me great, but it fits me okay. But I think that's really
That's
cool.
why you couldn't turn down wearing it for the episode.
Definitely not. I was at first a little bit against it, but yeah, this is great. Like, yeah, and also I just like the Voyager ship, being a little science ship, little kind of scrappy thing. I mean, I know before when I talked about what ship I'd like to live on, I chose Enterprise D, but I'm thinking a bit more about Command here, and I really like Voyager, but I'm thinking if I've got Spock as the science officer, then I'd have to have on the bridge, have to cram on one of those Spockoscopes, as they call them in Futurama,
just so he could like steer in.
Look down that blue thing all the time, even if it does nothing. But yeah.
Okay, so for science, I've got Jadzia and you've got Spock. So
yeah.
pick a role, Richard.
I'll pick another role. Have you got tactical down as one?
I have got tactical down.
Okay, who have you got for tactical?
Worf.
Worf. Yeah, that is a great tactical officer, actually.
Well, it was kind of because originally I was thinking of Worf for security, which is his role in Next Generation. But then in Deep Space Nine, he's more in a tactical role where he's coordinating fleet movements and the ships around Deep Space Nine.
Well, they all do
and he's
several
still,
roles.
he's still involved in security and is always there when there's a melee going on.
Yeah.
And Worf is actually Michael Dorn has appeared in more episodes of Star Trek than any other actor.
I know. I've watched them all, and he is often in Star Trek.
And he's just a beast, isn't he? He's just
Yeah.
absolutely amazing in as Worf.
It's such an interesting character. I mean, it's such a strong character, but also there's little funny idiosyncrasies that come out.
What would you say is one of the your strongest memories of Worf as a character? As in
Well,
the things that he
actually,
did?
what I'm thinking of at the moment is things that are in DS9, particularly when he fought loads of Jemadar. When they were in the prison camp.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right. And the other one was
when
he
Martok's
went,
supporting him and he's fighting
That's
and he
cool,
goes through
yeah.
one after the other right up until the
and they
first.
keep sticking Garak in the wall, even
And
though
he's
he's got
like
claustrophobia.
refusing to back down even though he's got broken ribs.
Yeah. He keeps going and pressing that thing. So that's kind of the quintessential.
And the Jemadar
Worf
says,
thing.
"I cannot defeat this man.
I can only kill him."
him."
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. Yeah. And then he talks about it later, doesn't he? How he had that kind of warrior moment with Martok, and you can kind of think back to the episode. The other one I think of him mainly of is that one when he went back to save Jadzia.
Yeah.
When they were running through the
The
forest.
Klingon hearts beating.
Yeah, that one, and because that really screwed his career up, didn't it? Because that's basically why he didn't get to have a ship of his own. He would obviously have had one by now.
Always made me smile as well. So actually, we see him in command in one of the Star Trek films, don't we? First Contact.
When he's flying the Defiant.
He's in command of the Defiant, yeah.
Like I said, it's such a little ship.
No, but because there was one of the things in Deep Space Nine was when Jadzia tells Cisco that he intimidates Worf.
Oh, but he's really happy, isn't he?
He's happy and he's laughing. I intimidate Worf.
Yeah, that was
the only person that can intimidate Worf. But yeah, so I mean, that guy. If there's anybody you want at your side in a melee, it's gonna be Worf, isn't it? I mean, he's probably the greatest warrior that we see in Star Trek.
Well, if it's going to be purely tactical, then it's got to be Worf, really. So I'm gonna put that down.
We're both going for Worf. Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of keeping track of yours on here. So.
You're comparing. I'm also, because he's in tactical, got a security role, and I've gone for Odo.
Yeah, he loves the policing.
Yeah.
So.
Because he's a shapeshifter, he is so effective as a policeman, and you've got to have somebody on my ship that can be watching Quark.
Yeah, you do. Even if he's not on your ship,
I need to know
he
that
will
somebody
still be
is making
Quark.
arrangements to be still watching Quark. So
having the Ferengi under surveillance is the main aspect.
Because there's things that he does as a security officer because of being a shapeshifter, where he's able to sneak aboard ships and solve crimes, and it's
not just
absolutely
that.
incredible.
Even if he wasn't, even when he's a solid, because he is a solid for a little while, he is still a great police officer.
Yeah,
isn't he?
because he's just got a great policeman's instinct,
Just 'cause he
and he's
lives it.
suspicious of everybody.
Yeah,
it's one of his best qualities. But as well as that, he'd be such a useful person to have on the crew because he could go into environments where they don't need oxygen, where gravity's an issue. He can change into all sorts of different creatures and useful things. So definitely, I want Odo on the crew as security.
I don't know if I was thinking about the security role because normally it kind of goes with tactical, doesn't it? Because Worf was both tactical and security on the Enterprise, but then on DS9 he was tactical and intelligence, wasn't he? Because I remember when Dr. Bashir had to take over for him and he wasn't read all the reports and keep them to himself, and he hated it. So but I think in the original series I don't think was there a security officer?
There were security. There were
security guys, but they died every week. So who the heck?
Maybe that's but this is it. That's because there was no one running the department.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, maybe they had just an empty desk with dust on it, and Kirk was just having to write letters to families all the time. But yeah, so I think it was a little bit more utopian back then, because it was like back when Gene Roddenberry was calling the shots a bit more, and. Yeah, I think really in DS9 that was when security kind of became an issue because they were making the show a bit darker, weren't they, and everything. But obviously in I just wanted to be a bit different. I mean, Odo is wonderful for security, but I'm going to have Yar on mine.
Yar? Tasha Yar?
Yeah,
really? Because
I'd like to add a universe where she was alive again. It was sad when she died. So
I'm here for you, man. I'm here for you.
Thanks, man. I know she was like back as Sealer for a while, but it was just sad to have a character die so early.
You know, I remember when I first started collecting Star Trek CCG cards when I was a kid, and I got a Tasha Yar card, and I was so excited I got a Tasha Yar card, and then I was like, but she dies so early on.
Yeah, and as they said in it, it was like meaningless as well. It was a display of power by that stupid Tar guy, but yeah. It's just like that. Her backstory was that she was on this really kind of dystopian planet, and she'd kind of come from that kind of thing. So I just thought.
So it's her background that you like.
Yeah, the fact that she's kind of bringing those kind of things to security.
Okay.
And partly because I don't want my ship to be exactly the same as yours.
Yeah.
So we have a different science officer and different security ones, but we've got the same tactical and engineer. So we'll just see how it goes from.
We've both gone for Klingons in those departments.
Yeah, but I really do like Odo for security. That's great, but a bit the same as O'Brien. I like him being on DS9. I don't like to think of him being on a ship so much, but that's just my personal thing, and it's my crew, so I'll do what I want.
Yeah. Who have you got on medical?
Medical, I have gone for the DS9 route and chosen the guy who's genetically engineered, Bashir.
Julian Bashir.
Yeah.
Why have you gone for Bashir?
Partly because of the fact that he is genetically engineered, but partly I do like the character because he was a little bit similar to Harry Kim, just very, very optimistic and happy to be there, and just wanted to experience the galaxy and stuff like that. And it's nice to have a character like that. And when you can have him also be hyper intelligent at the same time, it just seems like that would be a real benefit. It was a toss up between him and Phlox from Enterprise because I liked his menagerie of creatures that he had, because I think it was a really good idea in Enterprise to have him go the more kind of biological, like using creatures for their medicinal properties route, which is what we do here on Earth, like basically searching the rainforest for cures for diseases. And it's just interesting for that to happen in the future, but for multiple planets, rather than just use gadgets like the others do. So who have you chosen?
Well, actually, I thought a little bit about the EMH from Voyager, because the EMH is a good choice. But
I've still got him in a pinch.
Yeah. I thought the EMH would be a good choice, but if power ran out, it would be difficult, and it took a long time to get to a good EMH. He wasn't good from the beginning.
Yeah, you need the 29th century thing that he had on.
And you might not get that. The other thing I was thinking was, because I liked Crusher when she came back after her disappearance from the Next Generation, and she was trying different things. And she was a much better character, better written, and better acted, I'd say, as well. But that was because Gates McFadden was doing she had more input into that character at that point.
Yeah.
which is why she came back, and she did a great service when she did that. But in the end, I went for Julian Bashir because he is a great doctor. He's brilliantly clever, great to have in a pinch. He's actually, when you find out he's genetic engineered and he starts to not hide his abilities in different things, which he'd done previously, you start to realise just how useful he is. I mean, he's like a little computer, like Data sometimes, working out figures incredibly fast. Increased hand-eye coordination, which is good if you come into a fight. And he's just generally a good guy.
So you've got a bit of a ship full of computers, haven't you, really?
I've got some very clever people on my ship, and I would like to think of as being an intelligent crew. So, but he's my medical choice.
Yeah.
Who have you got for Helm?
Helmsman.
Did you pick a helmsman?
I did, yeah.
Are you worried that I might have picked the same helmsman?
Tom Paris.
One of my favourite characters in Voyager, and actually beyond that, I just think Tom Paris is a very good character.
Well, you need the rebel without a cause to be on that. Well, he's just all about piloting, but also he has loads of other interests, and I think he would make the crew a bit more fun. He was constantly kind of answering back to Janeway and all stuff like that, wasn't he? So I think that would be interesting.
We get to play as Captain Proton holo programs, and
I mean, just look at the people I've got. Like, he'd be on there with Spock and Worf. You'd need somebody bringing a bit of character to the bridge. So, and he also.
Are you suggesting that Worf doesn't have character?
Oh, he has to order prune juice all the time. I mean,
take a walk on the wild side. I mean, yeah, Tom Paris I think is a bit of an underrated character sometimes because he was very well acted, very well played, but he had some very good survival skills because he grew up in a bit of a rough. He's very much ready in a bar. He knows his way around.
Yeah, and also
he's got street smarts, and also Balana's in engineering. So if I've got Tom, he can be happy.
Actually, yeah. You know what? I didn't think of that.
You're not thinking about these characters' love lives, are you? I mean, I've got Jadzia and Worf together. I've got Balana and Tom together.
I've got a lonely Worf.
You've got
Bashir's going to be pining for Jadzia as well.
So yeah,
no.
So we've both gone with Tom Paris.
We always found him quite a funny character as well. I watched all these with my sister, and we just found it funny that Tom Paris was such a rebel, but also he was just such a clean-cut guy as well. It's like he was spoken about as being such a rebel, but he was also just such a nice, normal guy. And so it's like he's basically the Starfleet version of a rebel, which is still just a stand-up member of the community.
I mean, he's not like Harry Kim in the sense of being really naive. He's got a lot of street smarts, but he is genuinely a nice guy who wants to help people.
There's still a bad
but he just
influence
makes
on Harry.
a lot of mistakes.
Yeah,
but
yeah, one of the best ones of Voyager, I think, is where he gets demoted. I think it was very interesting to have an episode where a character gets severely disciplined like that. So yeah, he was a very interesting character. Yeah, I thought so, and plus I just thought, as a pilot, have someone who loves the piloting, because I know on Next Generation they went through a few, didn't they? Really, helmsmen. They didn't have the same one for a long time.
No, but obviously with being out in the Delta Quadrant, they just had a particularly one guy pretty much running the show.
You're saying they had to just have what they had.
Well, there were other helmsmen, but he was the standout one. And actually,
Janeway
he
went
was
to the prison to get him.
He was the third officer as well, wasn't he? He was never actually specifically said, but if you actually look at some of the dialogue, so the
just
command
felt
structure
that between the lines.
No, it was. There were times where like it was made clear that he was in command because Tuvok, Chakotay, and Janeway weren't there. And so he was in charge, which would put him in the role of third officer.
I just remember that episode of...
There's several instances where it was like that. Plus there was another one where it was kind of like I think it was like an alternate reality or something like that. But it was Chakotay, Tuvok, and then Paris in command. But yeah, he was you can read between the lines there with some of the things that were said.
EMH turned himself into the ECH.
Yeah, emergency command hologram.
Yeah.
But then... So Tom was just a great character. But now, we've gone through a lot of these. I've only got 3 roles left. Operations.
Forgot about operations.
You forgot about operations.
Let me just think about what the options are.
Well, while you're thinking about that, I'll tell you who I chose.
Okay.
Data. Now,
Hang on. Okay, I see. He can do both roles, can't he?
he is.
I thought of 2 datas then.
Well, no, I've only got one data.
Oh, who
I've
was
already got
your?
one role.
Oh, your science was Jadzia, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That's
Dax
right.
was
Yeah.
the science officer. So the only role I've got for data is ops. And I think having data on the ship in any capacity is a good idea.
Yeah. it is.
Because he's just an all-round great person to have on the ship. Incredibly intelligent, incredibly useful as a crew member, and one of my favourites in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Brent
that is
Spiner
great.
did a great job of bringing data to life.
Yeah, I think that is a good choice. I mean, I know I have said before that I would. Actually, I can kind of have my cake and eat it with the engineers, because I'm pretty sure wasn't who was the operations in DS9?
It was one Miles Edward O'Brien.
I'm gonna have him.
And I was torn between Miles and Data, but I just thought Data's so much
O'Brien.
useful in other aspects.
Well, your ship's going to be very logical, and mine is going to be nice and Irish, which is how I want my ship.
Nice and Irish. You've only got O'Brien. He's the only Irishman.
Yeah, but he's so Irish.
He's so Irish. Okay.
Yeah.
Miles Edward O'Brien. Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll give you that one.
Okay. And he can hang out with Bashir. And they can
Yeah.
go on the holodeck there.
Yeah, well, I think Bashir was also going to be friends with my Data.
Yeah. Good luck with that one.
Because, well, they both think alike.
Yeah.
Because with his genetic engineering,
Yeah.
you know.
It's somebody that could possibly beat him at darts, isn't it?
Exactly, exactly. So, there's only 2 roles left. I know
Yeah.
who my captain and first officer are. I'd
Right.
like to hear who your first officer is.
My first officer. The obvious choice is Riker, but I didn't want to go with the obvious choice for mine. I was kind of tempted about T'Pol.
Mhm.
She was basically the first officer, but also the science officer of Enterprise. But I thought, if I'd got Spock to be the Vulcan, I don't want to be speciesist, but like he's filling.
One Vulcan's enough.
Well, he's filling the logical kind of role there. I don't want to be like that captain on that episode of DS9 who only has Vulcans. I think so. Yeah, that's a bit nasty. So I actually wanted to have Kira because of her scrappiness and
I nearly went with
Yeah.
Kira.
and just her very strong ways, and just like Yar, it's her past basically. Like she can bring those kind of experiences to the crew, and basically the Federation seems kind of pampered, but these people aren't. And I think basically not just in combat situations, but also just in hanging around on the ship. I think the stuff they say will just be a splash of cold water to the people who've always lived like within the Federation. So yeah, Kira is mine.
So you got Kira. I very nearly went for Kira.
Mm-hmm.
I did go for the only rational choice,
Yeah, William T. Riker.
William T. Riker.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of Riker.
I mean your ship is going to be flipping amazing, but mine is going to be kind of. It's just going to be the ones that I want to have, and that's kind of what I really went for. So yours is Riker.
Mine was Riker. I mean, Riker is a brilliant first officer.
He's very cool.
He is the number one. He is possibly the coolest guy in Star Trek,
Yeah.
isn't he? And there was so many times where I thought, why has this guy not got a ship of his own? Because he would make an amazing captain.
He kept not wanting to have
Because he
one,
wanted to
didn't
be on
he?
the Enterprise with
the
Picard.
flagship. Yeah, being the second officer on the flagship was better than having his own other ship, wasn't it, to him?
I always thought, there's so many options for a new Star Trek series, and again, they've gone into the past, which I wish they hadn't have done with the upcoming Star Trek show. But I always wanted to see a series where Riker got his own ship.
Right.
I mean, there was a series of books, weren't there? The Star Trek following the Titan, the USS Titan, where he gets his own crew, and he has Tuvok on his crew.
That's a really interesting crew.
And he has, by that point, is married to Deanna, so Deanna's
She's
with
there,
him.
yeah.
And then the rest of the
They
crew.
have a few
crew is
crazy
pretty-
aliens that are really good.
It's
There's
like a dinosaur doctor.
There's a dinosaur doctor.
Dr. Dino, I always
like
want to
kind of
call him.
half cyborg. And they also had their science officer could only exist in like nearly 0 G, and they had like a hologram avatar for her to get around the rest of the
Mm.
ship. I thought it was like interesting ideas that would be difficult to realise on the TV screen, but you could do it in a book. So I think the Titan is a really interesting ship.
I mean, I do think out of all the first officers, if you were going to say a first officer that would make the best captain, I mean, all of the Star Trek ships had good first officers. I mean, you've gone with Kira. Kira would be a brilliant leader.
Yeah.
Chakotay was great. I loved the character of Chakotay.
I very nearly went for Chakotay because I did really like him.
Well, I always wanted him to be the captain instead of Janeway. I always preferred him as a character to Janeway's character.
I like the vegetarian characters as well. Just because it's what I eat, so
But
it's nice to have that validated.
but again, because of his ancestry and his heritage, he brought something different to the show. But in the end, yeah, there's just no competition. Riker, hands down, is the best number one.
Yeah.
So, big reveal time.
No, actually, before we do the captain, I also wanted to have a communications officer because there's only certain times when they have one.
I did think about that, but because of the invent of the universal translators, they didn't have one after Uhura. So there's only two in Star Trek, which was Hoshi and Uhura herself.
I just wanted to have Hoshi on the ship because she's so competent.
If I was going to have
amazing with languages.
If I was going to pick a communications officer, so we're saying everyone gets a communications officer, I would have gone with Hoshi.
Yeah. I mean,
although now you've said Hoshi, I'm thinking maybe I should have Uhura.
You could have Kelvin Uhura if you wanted. I mean,
Kelvin Universe Uhura.
I don't know.
So is Saldana.
What? Oh yeah, I don't know. No, actually, you've not got Spock.
I've
got Prime Universe Spock here, and no, I was just thinking out loud. I don't know. I mean, Prime Universe.
I think you're giving away a little bit too much about yourself here.
No, sorry.
So we all get a communications officer. In that case, I would probably say, I do like Hoshi. I do like the character. I do like Uhura as well, but I feel that they probably the wrong time. They fleshed out Hoshi's character more and went more into her background and her story and developed her more than they did with Uhura.
She was just so brilliant with languages. I mean, she was like Daniel Jackson level of knowing languages, but also she could listen to it for a while and then isolate what the verbs were and stuff like that, and it was just so amazing.
I mean, I do think, as I say, I'd probably have to say Hoshi, because as much as I love Uhura, I feel that they just spent more time creating the character with Hoshi. And with the original series Star Trek, it was although all the characters were good. I mean, Chekhov and Sulu were great characters. Scotty was amazing. But a lot of the time, the only characters they gave a lot of depth to and with backstory and subplots were your main three, Kirk, Spock and McCoy.
Yeah.
Whereas with the later series, they made sure to give more time. Probably just a time factor, because the original series had far fewer episodes than the other series of Star Trek. So I would probably say that, again, they just did more with the Hoshi character, so I'd have to go with Hoshi. Now, before we come to the captains, I do think that we should all get one free pick for a crew member.
Or just a random one.
Not to go in a specific role, but in like maybe a special advisory status.
That's a nice idea.
And for me, I am going with Kira.
Right, so you still get a Kira.
I get a Kira. Because Kira Nerys is one of the best characters in Star Trek. I absolutely love her character. I think Nana Visitor does a great portrayal of the character. And it's the first time we really see a character from that sort of background, from an oppressed, conquered world.
Yeah.
That was a freedom fighter. In a pinch, she's a character you want to have at your side.
Okay.
If I was being held captive by the Cardassians, then it would be her and Worf that I'd want coming after me to rescue me.
I don't blame you. Yeah, they are a reliable team.
And someone's got to kick Cardassian butt on my ship.
Well, I already have Kira and Worf on my ship. And since it's going to be a free character, I would just
non-captainsy.
I would just go with my heart and choose another Vulcan. I'm going to go with Tuvok.
Tuvok, good choice.
I love what he did with the whole Vulcan philosophy, basically. I mean, there was so much more to his idea of being Vulcan, and he's another tactical officer, and he is like he knows multiple martial arts and things like that, and his mental discipline seems a little bit different to Spock's. I mean, I've already got Spock as being my science officer, but Tuvok, it seems like he has all these emotions that he's keeping in check. I know Spock does as well, but Spock finds things fascinating, famously. Whereas Tuvok, basically, it makes Vulcan philosophy seem like more of a way of life. And I'm just watching Voyager. I really identified with his character, because the way he'd find people annoying, like Neelix, obviously, and yet he would keep everything in control all the time. And I would love to have him on the ship. So I'm just writing Tuvok down here.
Yep.
No particular role, but he will be on the ship. And yours was Kira.
Mine was Kira.
So Kira is here
as
as
I
well.
say, Kira's got so much spirit. She's such a great character. She's got so much empathy with her for other people and their problems. And I just think I would want a Kira Nerys on my ship. She nearly made it to my first officer role as well, because she is just an exceptional person.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
I wish I could have had Spock on my ship. If I'd got Kira on a roll, I would probably have said that my free officer was going to be Spock, because I regret not having Spock on my ship. But my ship as it is just so cool.
I regret not having Chakotay, but I couldn't really think of him being in a different role, and I think, like, I don't know, if I'm just having he would have been my second choice for first officer, whereas Tuvok, I would just like him to have him on the ship somewhere.
So the big moment of truth, the captaincy.
Yeah, the captaincy. Now, this is why we've kept this till last, but yeah, I kind of imagined me being the captain on this ship.
Power struggles.
I know, power play. But no, if we're going to pick a captain for this particular crew,
I imagined it was just being a ship that we're on. You know, like in Star Trek, you get admirals that would go out on missions and they'd have a complete command crew on the
So yours ship. Is an even greater power play, so you want to be an admiral. Yeah.
Well, I just like the idea of being on the ship with this crew. And this is knowing that this crew was out there. If sometimes you think, you need a rescue mission, you're stranded somewhere. Who would come to save you? Well, this is the crew I'd want to come and save me.
Right.
But yeah, captain. Aside from yourself, who would you pick as the captain?
Well, for me, I know there are other captains out there, but it's kind of the classic toss-up between Picard and Kirk, because I loved The Next Generation when I was watching that, and obviously Captain Picard is so solid with tactics, and also he's so cultured as well, and so good at diplomacy. But I really love the original series as well, and it's more recently that I've been watching the original series and appreciating that Kirk has as much depth, basically. And yet is more of a maverick. He will flaunt the rules more. And I'm just thinking, with this particular crew that I've got here, I think for the captain, I just think it'd be really interesting to have Kirk on a ship. He's got Spock, basically. So there's the classic team of Kirk and Spock. But then to have his first officer being Kira, his helmsman being Tom Paris, his tactical being Worf, Bashir, B'Elanna, O'Brien, Yarhosh, and Tuvok.
Kira is such a maverick herself that
I admit,
you've got a very maverick team there.
This ship will be causing chaos in the galaxy, but I would like to see it.
Yeah.
So I'm going with that. I'm going with Kirk for my captain.
I also thought of the traditional, toss-up, as you say, between Kirk and Picard. But for a long time, I felt that if I was going to serve with a captain, I'd want it to be Sisko.
Right. Sisko.
From Deep Space Nine.
Because you're wearing his uniform.
I am wearing his... Well, he lent it me. On the specific terms that I named him as the captain of the ship.
Oh, okay, good.
So,
so we're eating jambalaya later.
Yeah.
Having a Raktajino.
I love the original. I love all from original series. The only series I wasn't a huge fan of was Enterprise. But I loved Deep Space Nine. I thought that as a series, it did stories that were long-term and ongoing in a way that the other series couldn't, because they were constantly moving location, whereas they were able to have a long-term villain. I mean, having the story with the nemesis of Cisco and Ducat was a brilliant move.
There was a lot of twists around it as well, weren't there?
And as I say, having Kira there as kind of like a maverick character. Well, Cisco could be a maverick. I almost see Cisco as sitting between Kirk and Picard.
He did use his biological weapons that time.
Yeah. And I think because I was debating really between Picard and Cisco, but what clinched it for me was one scene in particular. You hit me! Picard never hit me!
Oh, yeah.
I'm not Picard.
When he punched Q.
When he punched Q in the face.
Actually, yeah, punching Q is pretty badass.
I mean, take aside defeating the Dominion. Take aside the fact that he's the only captain that's not entirely human because he's part Prophet.
Yeah.
The fact that he punched a Q.
Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty amazing.
But
he
liked his sports. He was a great team builder. He could cook. He would have you around to dinner.
He was a single dad.
That's it. I felt that there was a lot to his character. I mean, it was the first time you saw a character with a real family situation, because obviously he had his own dad he was worried about. He had his son. Yeah. He ended up getting married. He came from a situation where he was a single dad after losing his wife. There was so much more that they did with that character. It was the only character that they had that was more than just a Starfleet captain, because he was the emissary of the prophets.
Yeah.
So he had
much a
cultural
interesting aspect to his character, I thought.
He was a great officer for wartime, but he was also a good diplomat, much like Picard. He also had a real interest in history and archaeology, like Picard, but that was more to do with the fact that because of his role as the emissary and trying to understand the history of Bajor.
His interest was archaeology on Bajor, wasn't it?
Whereas Picard's was just archaeology across the galaxy.
Yeah, especially with Vash.
Well, Vash is an interest all in her own, isn't she? And obviously his friendship with Dax was great. So
you've got Cisco.
And I just thought, again, if I was going to have this is a guy who, whereas Picard would follow the Prime Directive and probably leave you stranded if he had
98% of the time.
Kirk would just disregard the Prime Directive every time he needed to. Cisco would do that when it was important. He was a guy that knew, he saw the line, and he knew when it was morally right to cross the line.
Yes.
So he followed the rules, but he wasn't a slave to the rules. He knew sometimes that for things to be done right, you had to kind of bend the rules a little bit.
Look at that stuff he did with Garrick that time. The Pale Moonlight one, was it?
Yeah, and the Pale Moonlight, which was a fantastic episode.
Brilliant.
When he brought the Romulans into the war.
Yeah.
And he can live with it.
And it was a fake. Yeah. Okay,
how ironic.
Alright, so you have got Cisco as captain, Riker as first officer, Jadzia as science officer, Tom Paris on the helm, Worf at tactical, Bashir as the doctor, B'Elanna in the engine room, 7 of 9 in the astrometrics lab, Data as operations officer, Odo as security officer, Hoshi on communications, and Kira
wandering around and kicking ass,
doing whatever she needs
kicking
to
ass
do.
And taking names.
Yeah, that is a pretty amazing crew. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that as being. What ship are you imagining, just off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, I was probably thinking the Enterprise E, just because it was an advanced ship.
That is a sweet ship. Yeah. So yeah, they've got a lot of firepower with them.
I mean, obviously, we in Cisco, I nearly said the Defiant.
Yeah, but that would be very cramped and warlike and stuff. So yeah.
For just general exploration, we want the Enterprise.
I don't think you'd have an astrometrics lab on that.
No, there wouldn't be space.
So yeah, and for me, I've got Captain Kirk with the first officer Kira. That is weird. just even
Kirk and Kira.
That. Yeah. And science officer Spock looking down the Spockoscope. Tom Paris is still flying the ship, and Worf is still on tactical. Bashir is still being the genetically engineered doctor. B'Elanna is in the engine room. Seven's in the astrometrics lab. This is all on Voyager, by the way. O'Brien is sorting out operations and hanging out with Bashir at various times. Security is Tasha Yar, being incredibly tough. Communications is Hoshi, and Tuvok is there to help everybody with their logic.
And I would say that, I mean, O'Brien is an amazing character. I love that O'Brien was in Next Generation and Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
I love some of the stories that he gets into and his friendship with Bashir.
Getting close to Worf in amount of episodes.
Well, as I say, there's not
many episodes of Next Generation.
He did probably more small appearances than a lot. Because originally it was the transporter chief. Wasn't
you counting seconds of screen time?
Well, just sheer appearances.
Right. Okay.
He appeared a lot, just operating transporters. But he then later played more of a role in some of the later Next Generation episodes.
And he was such a deep character in DS9. And because I watched some of the commentaries of the episodes and interviews with the writers and things, and they said when you want to really feel an episode, you just make something really awful happen to O'Brien. And I felt sorry for him, but
this is it.
Really terrible things happened to him.
He had a lot to live through, especially because of his in different ordeals with the Cardassians and things like that. But he was such a good character. I mean, there's when you're looking at these sort of series and you're seeing that a character has to hold an entire episode by himself. There's not a lot of characters that can do that and do it well.
No.
But with him, you can just watch any episode with him and his acting will bring it to life.
Yeah.
I mean,
Cole Meany was great at that.
He was absolutely fantastic, wasn't he? And your dad got to meet him once.
He did, yeah, at the university. Yeah. I think he was doing something different at the time. But
I got to meet Tuvok.
Did you?
Yeah. When I was a kid, he did a signing at Forbidden Planet in Nottingham, and my dad took me.
That's why you suddenly became so wise.
So I got to meet him. I've got a signed picture of him somewhere.
Oh, sweet.
I say somewhere. I know exactly where it is. I'm just not admitting to it.
Okay. Oh yeah. You were wondering how much of your Star Trek memorabilia to bring out for this, and we decided half or something. I don't know. We don't want to look too bad.
We just brought my 7 of 9 and my Star Trek props out.
I
don't want to look like too much of a geek.
It's really cool the way she's just in an alcove there. That'd be a cool way to sleep as well, being in an alcove.
So we've picked our ships. We've gone for different crews. I very carefully had to make sure that my crew just wasn't just the crew of Deep Space Nine, because that is my favourite Star Trek series.
I tried to have a bit of a
One of the reasons
mix.
I went for Riker over Kira for First Officer and for B'Elanna, over O'Brien, was because I thought if I don't do this, it is going to turn into DS9 with Data and 7.
DS9 is a very easy series to love. I mean, you can just get so into the characters and the situations.
I have to admit, if someone said to me, I've never watched any Star Trek, what should I watch to see if I like it or not? Deep Space Nine would be what I tell them to watch.
Well, I think because partly I think it's got so many issues that are relevant, and I think if somebody hadn't watched any Star Trek, then they're probably not that into sci-fi. But DS9 is a bit more real than the others, and that's partly why they made it, isn't it? Because it wasn't. The rest of Star Trek wasn't quite dark enough. I mean, it seemed too utopian future. And even when they introduced the Borg as being like the downside of technology,
but even the Borg weren't the villains that the Cardassians were.
No.
And the Cardassians, and particularly Dukat, and then later the Dominion.
Yeah, it was like the dark side of humanity, basically, was coming out in the Cardassians. Then in later episodes, you had to see them as being more three-dimensional as well, because you had like the stuff that Garrick had to go through, and saw him as a person.
One of the brilliant. I mean, I'd say I would
if
love to have
Spy
had
on this. Then
if I had, if I had an intelligence officer, then we would have both had a free Garrick.
We would have done really,
because Garrick was one of the most interesting characters because he had such a mysterious presence to him.
Another person that Sisko punched as well.
Yep, he did.
I love the way he just
Garrick
blocked it and then he punched him with the other hand.
I just love the fact the way that Garrick just didn't. He just knew Sisko was angry. He knew Sisko had a right to be angry, so he was just talking him down while taking the hits.
While taking the beating. But basically, Garrick took a beating for the sake of the winning
humanity.
The war. Yeah, yeah, for the Alpha Quadrant. Really.
Yeah,
yeah.
and we don't give Garrick enough credit for that. So well done, Garrick. Andrew Robinson brilliantly portrayed that role.
And he wrote a really good book about it as well.
Yeah.
About A Stitch in Time. It's
Yeah,
a great
I've read
book
that.
about Garrick.
He's started to find out more about his mysterious backstory. And
Yeah.
so yeah, this is our Star Trek dream team.
Dedicated to Garrick.
Dedicated to Andrew Robinson as Garrick. Thank you, Garrick, for bringing the Romulans into the war and saving the Alpha Quadrant and life as we know it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your thick skin.
I don't know who you are, but we're the Meddlesome Meeples, and it's time to talk about books. A very particular set of books.
Welcome to Tome Talk, and today Matt is going to talk about Aztec Century by Christopher Evans.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's a book that I've been waiting a long time to read. This is one I've literally only just finished reading about an hour or so before we started recording. No, I hadn't read it before.
Oh.
I'd started reading it. This was one of the reasons why I'd been so excited to get my hands on a copy of this, because when I was younger, my mum used to do cleaning work, and she used to clean in a library in the evenings, but she had to usually take me with her because there was no one else to look after me. So, and the library staff knew this, and they were quite happy for it as long as I didn't go around to certain parts of the library. So I just used to sit in the library for a couple of hours and read. And I remember one time I finished a book and picked up a book with about 5-10 minutes left to go and started reading it. And I was really excited by this book because, I mean, I was about 9 years old, I think, at the time, but I was hugely interested in Aztecs and the Aztec Empire. And I picked up this book, and it was an alternate history novel where the premise of the story, although it was set in more modern times, was that when Hernando Cortez went to Tenochtitlan, he actually sided with the Aztecs.
Right.
And then he helped the Aztecs repel different waves of conquistadors, and the Aztecs became a world power. And I remember going back to the library during opening hours to try and get the book out so I could take it home and read it. But at the time, there was an age restriction on the book, so I couldn't hire it. And I thought, oh well, when I'm old enough, I'm definitely going to have to go back and get that book.
Right. So this
By
is
which point, I'd forgotten what the book was, what it was called, who wrote it. I just had this idea in my head, so I was trying to figure out what the book was.
It says at the bottom, written and chained by the Aztec Empire. Maybe that's all you knew about it.
That was pretty much all I knew
about it.
it.
From the tagline, because on the front, because I was looking at this, because you were reading it a bit last week, weren't you, as well? It's got kind of London on the front. It's quite recognisable because you see Big Ben.
Yeah.
But there's like an Aztec pyramid in there, and
a glider, Aztec glider.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
And it looks incredible, very futuristic. But as I say, it took me ages to try and track this down. And I only found it because someone gave me the title of it, and that came about because one of the groups I'm in on Facebook, which is Board Gaming and Trading and Chat UK, there was a discussion in there about what books people like to read, and I made a comment on there that I was after this book, which was about an alternate history Aztec Empire, and someone says, oh, that sounds like Aztec Century by Christopher Evans. So I thought, yeah, I've got to. So I went out and bought it that same day, and finally got around to reading it, and I was quite excited even by some of the blurb on the back. Ian M. Banks, who's one of your favourite authors, he said about this that it's intelligent, finely written, and towards the end absolutely nail-biting.
Alright, so you could actually look forward to the end then.
Yeah. So I plunged into reading it, and I have to admit it wasn't as good as I remembered it being as a kid when I started.
Right.
The reason being, I'd seemed to remember. Well, I'd only read the very first bit of it, which talked about the Aztec Empire conquering the UK, and there's only a very short bit about that, and that's all I really remembered.
And then you just imagine the rest of it for years.
I just imagine, the rest of it being about the conquest and about the empire, and it being sort of like a grand geopolitical book with military overtones. And actually, it's not quite like that. The book is full of, the conquest of the Aztecs, the political intrigue that's going on. At its heart, there is a romance between Princess Catherine, one of the part of the royal family, and Esteban, who is the heir who becomes the heir to the throne. He's not at the start of the book. Who is installed as the governor of Britain.
Well, that would have annoyed you.
That annoyed
when you were 9.
That would have annoyed me when I was 9 if I'd got to that bit, and it annoyed me now because I'm not really a fan of romance novels. That said, I really enjoyed the book, particularly as Banks said towards the end.
Right,
the last 80 or 90 pages, I literally couldn't put the book down. I just carried on reading, and just to give you an idea, it starts off with certain members of the royal family having escaped London. The king's been captured, as has the prince, but there's 2 of the princesses and a baby escape along with some of their retinue, and they're hiding in a place in Wales, and they're there for a couple of years before they're finally found. All this is very early on in the book, so it's no spoilers, and it's in fact referenced on the back of the book as well. And they're then brought back to London. They become part of like the new court. One of them in particular, the main character, Princess Catherine, very resistant to the Aztecs, wanting to try and help her people, also wanting to not have anything to do with the new establishment, and having like an inner struggle between herself not wanting to almost condone or give legitimacy to the dominant Aztecs by cooperating with them, but at the same time struggling internally because she knows that the only way that she can do anything to help her people is to work with them to some extent. Like she goes on a tour to try and find out what people need, whether it's medical supplies, food, etc., and then makes recommendations which are then acted on by the Aztecs. And it's quite an interesting view into the mind of someone who's in that position where she feels like she should be fighting back, but she knows that that's going to be futile, and the only thing that she can do as a captive is to try and do what she can to help her people. So that is interesting in itself. As I say, this is an alternate history sci-fi, so it's quite interesting because it's describing places like parts of London which at the same time are very familiar if you've been there, but then with like really strange differences because of the Aztec presence. So
when did they conquer it then?
It's set, I would say, in the 90s.
And they've only just been conquered.
And they've only just been conquered.
Right. Okay.
But there've been struggles against the Aztecs for years before that. But it's only recently that they attacked and conquered Britain.
Right. Okay.
And it has, as a result, very quickly after that conquest, there are things there like even as you're walking down the streets, the kind of stores that are around are selling Aztec goods. Things are slowly being altered. A lot of the films and culture reflect Aztec culture as opposed to British culture, and it's quite fascinating to see that kind of a what if society.
Yeah,
it's got, I say, there's futuristic technologies and their futuristic weapons, and I did feel that a lot of the twists as I was reading through were predictable to me until I got towards the end.
Right. Okay.
The actual ending of the book was very well done. I really enjoyed the ending of the book, and I didn't see those particular twists coming. And I would say, as Banks said, that when you get to the end, I didn't want to put it down. I just wanted to keep reading it.
Right.
That one of the things that I have to say in this, Princess Catherine, who's the main character, I really didn't like her.
No.
I found it hard to root for her in a way because there was an arrogance to her nature, which I suppose is going to come from, that privileged royal background that even being in exile didn't diminish.
Right.
And there were times when she was doing things when I was thinking, that's just stupid.
Right.
And the way her views on certain characters in the book just seemed completely out of whack to me, out of line. Even so, I still managed to enjoy it, even though it was being told from her eyes. And because it was from that position, you were able to, as I say, to see like the internecine struggles between the various characters representing the Aztec Empire. And overall, this touches on quite, as I say, a number of subjects. There's warfare in there. There's the historical aspect to it that's interesting. The politics in it are interesting, and the ending is brilliant. And it's one of the things that I've often wondered myself, what would have happened had Cortez gone over to the Aztecs, because the Aztec Empire had huge amount of wealth and resources.
They weren't very together though, were they?
No.
They didn't really have much going for them.
Well, this is it. That's why I always thought, what if Cortez had worked with them?
I thought he did. Just ruled them a bit.
Well, he kind of pretended to be a god for a while.
Yeah.
And then they realised that he wasn't and chucked him out. And then there was a long, bitter fight, which he largely won because of horses and his advanced weaponry. And he made an alliance, didn't he, with the various tribes that. Yeah. But in this is different. This he repels. He helps the Aztecs repel other conquistadors.
So
and it's quite interesting. I mean, some of the history of it is only touched on. Yeah. So, for example, Napoleon, Wellington, and Andrew Jackson together stopped the Aztec encroachment in the north.
Right.
In this, and there's just certain little historical aspects of it that's really interesting. But as I say, the whole history of the Aztec Empire, the human sacrifice side to their religion.
I was going to ask if there was that still.
Well, in this, the Aztecs have supposedly embraced Catholicism.
Right.
But there's lots of
Cortez's
secrets and rumours about, certain rituals and practices of them still honouring the old gods and still performing human sacrifices.
There's still some druids,
but they are denying it.
Alright, yeah.
But you will find an answer in the book.
Okay.
And that's, I don't want to say too much, obviously, but there is some really interesting things in this book. And it takes place across different settings. As I say, there's a lot set in the UK, there's a lot set in Tenochtitlan, there's sections of it that are set in Russia. So it's quite a broad scope of this, all told from the one character's perspective, Princess Catherine. But as I started to, I was kind of on a real journey with this, because I didn't think that I could possibly not like the book, and then I started to read it. I started to think I might be wrong.
Yeah, I remember you saying that it wasn't as good as you remembered, but you were still quite near the beginning at that point.
Yeah, and as I say, in the end, this is a book that I definitely enjoyed.
Okay.
And the ending itself was very good.
Good. So you didn't just get through it to say, don't get this book. You can say it is interesting, and twist at the end.
I think
that was the main thing that I got from what you said.
Yeah, it was very good at the end. I would say as well that Christopher Evans, who's the writer, he is Welsh, and I think that he did draw upon certain aspects of that when he was writing the book. I mean, there was a character in there who is Welsh. When the royal family are hiding out, they're hiding out in a place in Wales, and the story does come back to that later,
right?
In a way that you might find quite interesting when you actually get around to reading the book. But it does use his hometown as well in the story, so his own personality does come through in that regard. But yeah, I think this is a book that, particularly if you like alternate history, Harry Turtle, those sort of books, then Aztec Century by Christopher Evans is definitely going to be one to check out. But it's one that you might have to make yourself stick with to get the brilliant end. Yeah, okay then. So if you are a bit put off at the beginning, just remember that Matt was as well. Yeah. Right, so that's Tome Talk for this week, and next week I'll have a book to talk about. Do you know what that's going to be? No. Well, we'll see what Richard's been reading in a couple of weeks.
So Matthew thought that was good. What are your thoughts? Let us know.
So that was episode 9 of the Meddlesome Meeples. We hoped you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it. Please check us out on Instagram. We've been posting a lot of pictures from the UK Games Expo on Instagram, as well as pictures of games that we've been playing recently. You just join a different thing every week, don't you? We do. We are no longer probably as active on Tumblr as we used to be. But there are reasons for that. Nobody is. It's a thing of the past now. But that suits us. Yeah. So there we are. Instagram's better. Yeah. It's Instagram all the way. So nice. Meddlesome Meeples on Instagram. Please check us out and take a look at some of our pictures from the expo. And Heather's going to be rubbing in the fact that she's been seeing Wonder Woman and I haven't all week. So I've got that to look forward to between now and our next episode.
We could just go see it.
We could.
Well, you went to
That
see
would be
Star
better.
Wars without me when it Force Awakens. Nothing's going to be able to get
That's
you back for
nothing to
that.
do with me.
There's been so much teasing going on.
No, I'll
Right.
go again.
I'm off to watch some Stargate SG-1.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of the... Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show. Please come and check us out for episode 10. 10 episodes, Richard. We're still on air.
Amazing. We haven't done episode 10 yet, though, have we?
No.
Okay, that's
Well-
alright then, as long as I haven't forgot.
How much beer have you two had?
Sorry. See you.
Thanks for joining us. Stay meddlesome.
Farewell, Quester, and thanks for joining us. If you wish to avoid the wrath of Greyskarn The Black, then subscribe to our show before you depart. Our fortress is located at meddlesomemeeples.com, or join our banners by rendezvousing with us at facebook.com/meddlesomemeeples, instagram.com/the Meddlesome Meeples, or follow the flight of the mountain bluebird to @Meddlesome Meeples. Until next time, Quester, farewell, and keep thine axe sharp.